Hi, and welcome to Thoughts Over Coffee, giving you the time and the space to think and connect with others. So if you've got 5 minutes, join us for today's video, which is slightly different because we're going back in history to look at some of the old phrases and sayings that are in common use now have actually come from. So the first one we're going to be looking at is many years ago. To change the tan or change the colour of animal hides, they used to dip them in urine. And actually, with really poor people, all they could do was to sell that, so the actual urine could be then used to change the colour of the hides. What they used to be known is if people were poor, that's where that came from. But with richer people, what they would be able to do, if they were able to do that, is that they would collect it into a utensil, which is why the use of the term not having a pot to in has also come into place, which is quite interesting. The next one is that lots and lots of weddings always used to take place in the months of June. And the reason for that was a tradition for an annual bath to be had. So that's why lots of weddings actually took place in June. But the reason for the bouquet, it was to hide the smell of the body odour, which is why the bouquet is actually taken by the bride and carried as a way of disguising the smell of the body odour. So that's where that comes from. But also, because baths happened and they took place in the month of May, what would happen is you would have a very clear hierarchy of who would bath in which particular order. So you'd have the lord or the man of the manor would bath first, then the ladies, and then the children, etc, etc. But the last one to be bathed would be the baby. And that is where the saying comes out about throwing away the baby with the bathwater, or being careful not to throw away the baby with the bathwater. Interesting stuff, hey, going back in history. The next one is all about thatching. Now, what's really interesting was, once upon a time, and you can still see these around now, most houses had thatched roofs. And on those thatched roofs, the warmest place for people to be, either in the sunshine, or for things to be either in the sunshine or during the evening, because you'd have the hot air rising and coming out, would be on the roof of the thatch. And on those you'd get various animals living in there, various bugs, rodents and creatures. But you'd also, if they could reach them and get up there, you'd actually have cats and dogs. Now, when it rained, of course, it made the thatching very slippery, which is where the term comes from. It's raining cats and dogs, because they wouldn't be able to maintain their grip and they would fall off. There you go. Who would have known it? Also, it was known in houses, for very posh houses, which had tiled floors. And when the weather got really poor, it was very much of a struggle to maintain and keep on your feet, because, as you know, with tiles, once they get wet, they get very slippery. So what they would do is they would put straw down, very loose straw. And that is where they would put what was called thresh. That's what loose straw was actually called at that time. It was a type of loose straw, but it actually then stopped the floor from being slippery. But, of course, that thresh would move around. So at the front door, they would put a piece of wood to stop that from coming out of the door. When you open the door, it would stop the thresh from coming out, which is where the term comes from, coming over the threshold, or if you're walking onto someone's threshold. See, all this stuff steeped in history. Another one, which olden days, is about the lord of the manor, or the lord of the house, or the man of the house would go out to work and he would be paid. But if he was paid handsomely, he would come home and he would bring home a joint, and that joint would be the bacon. So hence the phrase, bringing home the bacon. There you go. Bread was also used a lot and eaten a lot, and it was used a lot to feed families. But what would happen is, if you had guests round, it would be eaten in order. So the people in that house would eat the bottom part, which was the more burnt part, whereas the people that were guests would have the top part, which was known as the upper crust. And that's where that comes from. And here's the final couple of ones. So the next one is lead cups were used to drink a lot of ale and whiskey in olden times. And what would happen is, due to lead poisoning along with the alcohol, people would be absolutely wiped out. These people would then be taken home and placed on kitchen tables to see if they would actually wake up. At the time, people didn't actually know if they were massively imbibed, although they could smell it, or alternatively, had they died. And this is where the term comes from, having a wake. Waiting for these people to wake up. With the volume of burials that used to go on in the olden times, they used to have to move graves so they could actually bury more people. But when they reopened graves, they found that 1 in 25 had scratch marks on the inside of the coffins. They eventually worked out that 1 in 25 people were being buried alive. So then what they did was, for future people that were being buried, they used to tie a piece of thread to their arm and then take that up to the ground and have a bell. Then someone would sit in the graveyard during the course of the night to listen to see if this bell would go off. And that's where the term the graveyard shift came from. How about that? Some of these things that are in common use now, which all steep back in medieval history. Fantastic. I hope you've enjoyed Thoughts Over Coffee. Thank you very much for watching and listening if you're on the podcast. And join us soon for another one on this channel. Take care. Cheers. Bye.